Insurance fraud in the UK is reaching epidemic levels, and it's costing us billions of pounds a year. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injury claims, even fake deaths. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year, it's adding up to £50 to your insurance bill. Insurers are fighting back, armed with covert surveillance systems.
The equipment that we have to use has to be cutting edge. It's as simple as that.
Sophisticated data analysis techniques.
This is connected to a bank account and a second mobile phone number.
And a newly formed dedicated police unit.
Police, get back!
They're catching the criminals red-handed. All those con men, scammers, cheats on the fiddle, now they're caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Today, a £750,000 claim comes under suspicion.
It was very pertinent to the case that we showed exactly how much he was able to do on a day-to-day basis.
A specialist police fraud unit executes an early morning raid on a suspect.
I'm going to be questioning you about a no claims discount, okay?
And a stubborn fraudster sticks to his story.
In the face of such overwhelming evidence, he wanted to try to find an excuse why he should still be paid.
This is Joan Kirk from Preston. In September 2001, she was injured in a car crash. The shunt left her with neck and shoulder pain, but her injuries seemed relatively minor.
Well, this was an accident where Mrs. Kirk was stationary at a roundabout and our customer hit her from behind. So this was a genuine accident. We had no doubt that the accident occurred. We also had no doubt that Mrs. Kirk received injuries as a result of the accident.
1 year after the crash, Mrs. Kirk's condition deteriorated. Complaining of extreme muscle spasms, chronic pain and exhaustion, she decided to quit her job as a university administrator. As well as making a claim for disability living allowance, she began legal proceedings against the insurer of the driver who had crashed into her. The claim was handed to the insurer.
Mrs. Kirk's claim came to us about 2 years after the initial accident had happened. She was claiming for £750,000.
To the experienced claims handlers at RBS, Joan Kirk's physical deterioration didn't fit the usual pattern.
We understand the types of injuries that are likely to come from accidents, and we also understand how people normally recover from those accidents. So where we find someone whose injuries are inconsistent with the type of accident that's occurred, then we have to investigate in more detail, and that's what happened in Mrs. Kirk's case.
To get the full picture, the insurer needed to see how Mrs. Kirk was going about her daily activities. If you want to spy on someone, this team of undercover investigators will get the job done, using their highly trained operatives.
The operatives themselves have to have kind of huge amount of concentration, and ultimately what we're seeking to do is maximise the footage that we get.
And today I'm one of 2 operatives tasked with observation and surveillance, and of Joan Kirk.
With the Kirk case, we were presented with an individual who was claiming physical disability. It was very pertinent to the case that we showed exactly how much he was able to do on a day-to-day basis. So for us, it was about maximising the surveillance footage and showing her in every scenario that we found her in.
Joan Kirk had submitted a £750,000 claim. In that claim, she stated that she needed crutches when going outside, that she was unable to carry out the simplest of tasks without help, that she was unable to hold a pen, that she was unable to sit or stand comfortably, and that she could only walk a maximum of 5 metres without stopping. In the spring of 2005, the surveillance company set about filming Mrs. Kirk. In order to get a fair picture of her everyday life, the surveillance ops filmed her on several occasions, spread over a period of 18 months. What they saw in the footage shocked the insurer.
Claimant can be seen now.
What we see when you start to look at the surveillance picture is somebody that is going about their normal daily tasks. They're going for walks, they're going to cash points, they're going into shops, they're carrying bags, they're carrying out their normal daily life.
One of the surveillance tapes shows Joan Kirk on a 90-minute shopping trip.
When we were filming her, she didn't exhibit any form of disability whatsoever. It was central to the case itself in showing the courts that there was a deliberate fraud involved or a level of exaggeration that went way beyond just trying to elevate your claim.
Mrs. Kirk claimed that she could only walk a maximum of 5 metres before needing to stop, and that she used crutches when going out. After watching the footage, that was something that the insurer found hard to believe.
So when the final claim was submitted by Mrs. Kirk's lawyers, we presented them with the evidence that we'd gathered over 2 years of all the things that she said that she couldn't do, but actually our evidence demonstrated that she could. So immediately they dropped the claim for £750,000 and accepted £25,000.
We were dealing with a lady who had clearly exaggerated her injuries in order to gain an increased payout through an insurance claim, but was clearly taking the mickey from the courts, abusing the legal system and the process that sits behind it.
When faced with the evidence, Joan Kirk settled for a hugely reduced payout of £25,000. That wasn't the end of it for her. She had attempted to fraudulently claim over £750,000.
We didn't think it was right that she should be able to walk away from a claim like that, from that kind of lie, without some kind of consequences.
In an unprecedented move, the insurer hit back at Joan Kirk and pursued the matter in court.
We undertook what was a landmark proceeding at the time to bring a case against her for contempt. Now that was something that no insurance company had done before.
In May 2009, Joan Kirk was found in contempt of court, ordered to pay her own legal bill of £125,000, a £2,500 fine for contempt, and half of the defendant's legal costs.
It took a lot of time, it took a lot of effort, and we had to be quite brave in what we were trying to do. But when we finally got to conviction, we were really pleased that we were actually sending a message. We'd blazed a trail on behalf of insurers and set a precedent that people can't make claims that are totally fabricated or exaggerated and walk away from their lives without any consequences.
An insurer spots a suspicious pattern of claims.
Always in a remote road. Police were never called to the scene of the accident.
And a carpet fitter fits up his insurance company.
He had told us that his foot was far too painful for him to work.
In the fight against the growing problem of insurance fraud, an elite police squad have come together to form IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
Insurance fraud isn't a victimless crime. £50 of each premium you pay each year goes to the fraudsters. We have been set up to tackle that problem.
This dedicated team works tirelessly to bang up the crooks and conmen getting rich off other people's money.
Police, get back!
It is our intention to create a climate of fear for the fraudster. There's every chance that an IFED detective may come knocking on their door to arrest them for committing an insurance fraud.
Police, don't move, stay where you are!
By April 2012, after only 6 months of operating, they had already busted 80 fraudsters, adding up to £12 million of fraud under investigation.
These people are criminals. These are nasty people. They don't go out to work on a Monday morning like most people do. Their work is submitting insurance fraud claims.
IFED doesn't just deal with large fraud gangs running crash-for-cash rings. It tackles insurance fraud of any type and scale. Today, it's raiding the property of a man suspected of lying on his motor insurance form.
He has submitted a forged no-claims discount letter in order to show that he's a lower risk and to get a lower premium. The actual gain in this case isn't that great. It's somewhere between £500 and £1,000, which is the discount he was able to get from lying about his no-claims history. We deal with criminals all the way from the most organised down to the very low-level fraudsters. And the person I'm going to arrest today does fit into the very low-level opportunist category. By tackling cases all across the spectrum, we can make it clear to people that insurance fraud is unacceptable.
The small four-man unit from IFED prepare to enter the suspect's property.
I'm here from the City of London Police. We need to get access to the building. Would you mind buzzing us in? Thank you.
The IFED team can hear some activity behind the door, but no one is answering.
Good morning, can you open the door please? It's the police.
City London Police?
Hi.
Is here, please?
Yeah.
Is that the bathroom or the bedroom?
No, bedroom.
Okay. Mr.
Yeah.
Alex Cooley, City London Police. Okay. I'm arresting you for fraud by false representation in relation to a forged no claims discount document. So the reason it's necessary for me to arrest you is to look for any documentation relating to the alleged fraud.
Let me change my clothes.
I'll let you get changed, yeah. Now, where are you planning to get changed? In the bathroom?
Washing my teeth.
Okay, well look, you need to get changed under the supervision of my colleague, okay? We need to search the suspect's bedroom and any other common areas that he might be keeping documentation in relation to the insurance fraud. And when we've completed the search, we'll be taking the suspect back to Bishopsgate Police Station. But no, just to explain what it's about. Okay, but I'm interested. Okay.
I'll write it down, guys.
But I just
IFED search is being delayed by the suspect.
I'm going to be questioning you about a no claims discount, okay? So I'm going to have to quickly search your pockets, okay?
I don't know why if I pay every month, I don't know why they do it.
I'm looking for any documentation relating directly to the claim we're investigating. So anything relating to that insurance company and the other insurance company which was used for the forged no claims discount. Is it? That's yours? Okay. The stuff that will be left behind is just being left on the floor here.
It's essential the team finds the documents linked to the claim. TI Alex Cooley needs to get the suspect to start cooperating.
That's your bank statement, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the amount I'm paying every.
Okay, well, that's fine. You can bring that with you. Okay?
TI Cooley must find the documentation he needs to build his case.
Okay, well, I'm looking for a bank statement on around the 2nd of February.
2nd of February.
So that's May to June.
You said 2009.
So 2nd of February 2012.
12.
I just found the documentation in the first drawer.
What's this? Oh, yeah, I think they open.
Okay.
You're changing the car.
Oh, yeah.
2nd of February 2012.
February, so that's a little bit. So if we go back a little bit early, no.
Right, I've got this statement here.
Yeah.
Could that be the one from the 2nd of February?
That's in the letter, we got to have the money there.
Okay, we'll have to keep looking for it.
Yeah, no problem.
The suspect took out a motor insurance policy. He declared that he had a 5 years no claims discount.
Personal injury insurance exists to help us when, due to an accident, we are unable to work or need money for extra care. And like motor insurance, it's being abused by dishonest claimants. The number of personal injury claims received by insurers leapt 72% between 2002 and 2010, a figure that's set to rise. July 2008. 3 months ago, this man broke his foot whilst at work.
The gentleman had injured his foot, he'd broken some bones in it, and was unable to work. So, under the terms of the policy, we were able to pay him for his inability to work.
He worked as a carpet fitter, but being self-employed hadn't earned a penny since sustaining the injury. Despite his lack of income, the carpet fitter was safe financially. He had personal injury cover, and having supplied adequate medical notes, his insurer had paid out.
As a result of his injuries, he was unable to carry out his full duties of laying a carpet. He couldn't drive, and he wasn't able to, the pain was too much for him to work. So that was under the terms of the policy. We would pay him until he was able to return to work. We were making benefit payments to the claimant for a period of several months. He broke his foot in, I think, the April, and so for some 3 months after that was receiving regular payments from us as part of his insurance cover. The claim in total was a region of £2,300.
3 months after the accident, his insurer attempted to contact him for an update on his condition.
We found it very difficult to get hold of him after some months after the injury. He wasn't answering his telephone. We weren't able to get updates on his medical condition or to find out if the plaster had been removed and if he was able to return to work some 3 months after the initial injury to his foot.
3 days after failing to get hold of the carpet fitter, the insurer was handed some intriguing information in the form of a tip-off from a member of the public.
We have a wide network of people with whom we work in the insurance industry, and that can be repairers, engineers, loss adjusters, and even members of the public. And all of those are often willing to let us know where they feel that the circumstances of an insurance claim are suspicious.
The informant called the insurer stating that the carpet fitter had been seen working. Potentially, the insurer was looking at a fraudulent claim, so they reacted with one of their most effective tools.
The next step for us, having received the tip-off, was to send out some surveillance. We sometimes do this in cases where we need to gather evidence to back up our suspicions that all is not as it should be.
And when they received the report back from the surveillance team,
we were shocked.
Okay, doc. Thanks for that. Lovely.
This is what they saw.
The surveillance team found that the carpet layer was not only working, he was driving his vehicle, he wasn't in plaster, and we had footage of him carrying heavy carpet rolls and fitting the carpet in somebody's house. When we had eventually managed to get hold of him, he had told us that his foot was far too painful for him to work, that he was suffering particular pains in the evening, which is perhaps not surprising after the amount of work he'd been doing, carrying carpets all day.
Confronted with such hard evidence, most people would back down and retract their fraudulent claim. Not the carpet fitter. The carpet fitter claimed that the footage was obtained on a day when he was testing his foot. But the suspect was filmed working for over 6 hours. This was, in the eyes of the insurer, more than enough time to test his foot.
I was surprised that he wanted to, in the face of such overwhelming evidence, try to find an excuse why he should still be paid.
In court, his excuses proved futile. The carpet fitter was ordered to pay back the £1,672 in payouts he had received, and was landed with a bill for the insurer's investigation and legal costs. With the added interest, he was looking at a bill totalling almost £9,000.
I'm happy that we have the money back and that it's meant that we haven't paid out for a fraudulent claim. I would like to see deterrent measures. I'd like to see a very strong message sent out. People who make exaggerated claims, I think, should consider that the impact it has on the millions of law-abiding and honest policyholders who all have to pay for it. This is not a victimless crime. These people are not taking money out of the system or some faceless insurance company. It's all going back to the innocent people who have to pay their premiums.
It's 2005. A fraud ringleader is gathering foot soldiers to take part in an audacious plot against an insurer. If successful, he could be masterminding one of the biggest crash-for-cash scams ever. Standing in his way is an insurance industry determined to stamp out the increasing number of these bogus crashes. Later that year, a large insurer became suspicious after receiving a number of claims that seemed to be linked.
We started to see an unusual amount of claims all coming out of the same depot of this big telecommunications company, and within a very short space of time, and they were all seemed to be of very similar nature. The cars were always full of people, always in a remote road. Police were never called to the scene of the accident.
Feeling sure that the claims were all linked, the insurer called on the help of the telecommunications company being targeted.
The telecommunications company were able to release some of the employment records, which then gave us some more links between the individuals involved.
All of the alleged smashes involved individuals who worked as sales reps for the company.
January 2005, June to 2005, a lot of them joined, a lot of them left, and that's when we saw the spike.
The connections continued to mount.
And then we also found out from employment records that a lot of these guys worked together previously.
By this point, the insurer was convinced that the sales reps had been using their company cars in staged crashes in order to make money from their company's policies. But this was a big operation. There had to be a ringleader. The insurer still didn't know who that was.
At the time, this was the biggest conspiracy fraud involving fake car crashes against one insurance company. Totaled 49 claims. The value of the fraud, if successful, would have been in excess of 1.3 million.
In the hunt for the ringleader, the insurer turned its attention to the details of the crash victims.
In terms of the injury claims, they were all whiplash. Very difficult to diagnose, very difficult to disprove.
Furthermore, the insurer found that, just like the sales reps, there was an uncanny coincidence with the victims too.
The people in the other cars were all friends and family.
Suspecting that the smash victims were part of the scam too, the insurer took its research to the police. The police questioned all the people involved in the crashes. One name cropped up time and time again. That of the man at the centre of the scam. Fraud ringleader Darren Duval, a 38-year-old butcher.
How we recruited him was interesting. He would sit in McDonald's, watch the same team of sales reps come in for their team breakfast. He then approached them. He approached the team leader, which he recruited first, and said, if you can give me your details, I'll give you £1,000, easy money. So in total, you're talking maybe £40,000, £50,000 going between the whole group of foot soldiers.
Had his plan succeeded, from his humble fast food cafe headquarters, his scheme could have cost the insurer a massive £1.5 million.
I do believe the ringleader at the time thought he was going to get away with this. He was very confident. The way he recruited his foot soldiers, the way he went about this, the way he planned this, executed it, very well organised, and I do believe he thought he was going to get away with it.
This massive organised crime had been busted. 25 defendants were charged with conspiracy to defraud. It took 5 days for the court to process them. 8 individuals received custodial sentences, the longest 3 years, being handed to the ringleader, Darren Duval.
In terms of how I felt and how Allianz felt, it was a very satisfying outcome. It sent out a message that actually insurance fraud, you're going to get caught.
I'm arresting you for fraud by false representation.
Today, IFED is raiding the property of a man suspected of lying on an insurance application. One piece of evidence T.I. Cooley is keen to get hold of is a bank statement.
Okay, we'll have to keep looking for it.
Yeah, no problem.
It's not the bank statement, but T.I. Cooley thinks he may have come across some potentially incriminating evidence. Paperwork directly relating to the suspect's insurance application.
Okay,
well, come on, I'll send it to them.
Okay, that's fine.
That's a letter for them.
Okay, if you want to place that on the bed, I'm just going to look. This might be relevant because it refers to the vehicle registration number that I'm interested in. If you can seize this pile of documentation and those phones and the wallets, we'll keep the wallet out separately. Okay, where are your shoes? I've seized a lot of miscellaneous documentation. I think, did we ever get that bank statement from the 2nd of February?
Yeah, we just found it.
No, I looked back. I think it went back to March.
Okay, well, if it needs to be, we can get that information from the bank.
Yeah.
So on that basis, I think we've got everything we need. I'm just gonna, if you put your arms over to that side, please. If you both arms over there. I arrested him for fraud by false representation in relation to a forged no claims discount document. In his bedroom wardrobe, he'd very helpfully kept a file of exactly what he'd sent to the insurance company, and there in a little plastic folder was the forged no claims document. The suspect took out the motor insurance policy, and when taking out the policy he declared that he had a 5 years no claims discount. The suspect sent them a document purporting to be the no claims discount, and that document has been proved to be a forgery.
You understand why you're here?
Yeah.
He didn't look too shocked though. I think he knew potentially what was coming.
Okay, we'll authorise your detention so the officers can interview you regarding the allegation. Make any...
We're trying to crack down at the moment on a whole load of forged documents which are circulating around the country.
Step up there, Forge, mate. You can do your fingerprints now, okay?
We are now picking up a whole number of suspects, trying to build together a picture of what's going on.
With the evidence gathered at the flat and the suspect cooperating, the IFED team is happy with the outcome of the raid. The suspect is on bail until December, and the investigation continues. Insurance fraud in the UK is reaching epidemic levels, and it's costing us billions of pounds every year. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injury claims, even fake deaths. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year, it's adding up to £50 to your insurance bill. Insurers are fighting back, armed with covert surveillance systems.
The equipment that we have to use has to be cutting edge. It's as simple as that.
Sophisticated data analysis techniques.
This is connected to a bank account and a second mobile phone number.
And a newly formed dedicated police unit.
Police, get back!
They're catching the criminals red-handed. All those con men, scammers, cheats on the fiddle, now they're caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Today, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department is on the trail of 3 suspects.
Does he reside here, sir?
Yes, he's in bed. He doesn't need to be disturbed.
Well, we need to speak to him, sir.
A gang who deliberately cause road traffic collisions is targeted.
It is a matter of time before someone is seriously hurt.
And the camera never lies, even if fraudsters do.
I see quite a lot of surveillance evidence, but even I was quite shocked. The deceit level was probably the biggest that I've ever seen.
Herne Bay, on the Kent coast, was the perfect place for ex-policeman Michael Hoare to enjoy his retirement. Until a road traffic collision caused by another driver left Michael injured and his car damaged. He submitted a claim on the insurance of the driver responsible. Susan Evans is fraud operations manager at the insurance company that handled the claim.
Mr. Hoare stopped at the entry to a roundabout and our policyholder had collided with the rear of his vehicle.
The claim included a list of the injuries that Michael had suffered.
The injuries that Mr Hall alleged to have been suffering with were a whiplash to the back and to the neck, an injury to his left foot and his left knee, and some psychological problems, including flashbacks of the accident.
He was claiming for a significant level of injury, which would require a hefty payout.
We were probably looking at between about 30 to 40,000 in relation to the claim itself.
The large claim also included the cost of a piece of equipment more associated with leisure than pain relief.
Mr Hall put a claim in for £2,300 for a hot tub.
With such extensive injuries, it seemed likely that the policyholder's car would be a write-off, but this was not the case.
There was about £1,500 worth of damage to our policyholder's vehicle, which is not a significant accident by any stretch of the imagination, and the injuries that were being complained of as the medical evidence was materialising were far more severe than one would have anticipated.
The inconsistency between the extent of the injuries and the relatively minor damage to the vehicle set alarm bells ringing. The insurer needed to get to the truth. The best way was to go undercover. The insurer called on the services of a group of investigators who specialise in concealed cameras and covert filming.
Our role is simply to remain covert at all times, to go in, take footage and take as much footage as possible so that the courts can form a correct legal opinion of someone's ability or disability.
Surveillance took place on the same day that Michael had to attend an examination.
On the day of his medical, presented himself as a person who needed a walking aid, who was very, very ill. He was kind of almost shuffling along. At one stage, he stopped and clearly appeared to have some form of twinge in his back, and presented himself as someone with a significant disability.
The footage supported Michael's claim, but the surveillance group had their suspicions.
This is a man who I suspect that he's under surveillance at that given point in time and wants to portray himself in a certain way.
However, other footage revealed Michael taking part in an activity that blew apart the deception.
We saw him drag out from behind his property a fairly substantial powerboat on a trailer, attach it to a 4x4 and then drive it off to the local harbour. And our last sighting of him was him sailing off into the sunset.
Under the sharp focus of the surveillance cameras, it was apparent that this former pillar of the community was trying to cheat his way to a payout that he didn't deserve.
What's kind of shocking about this particular case is that we're dealing with an ex-police officer who would have been exposed to investigating fraud and crime on a day-to-day basis. So one would think that he would have a strong sense of right and wrong.
I see quite a lot of surveillance evidence, but even I was quite shocked. The deceit level was probably the biggest that I've ever seen. I think he was a very, very good actor.
With the insurer now certain the claim was fraudulent, the decision was taken to pursue the matter in a criminal court.
A decision was made to take it to a criminal court and allow a judge to decide the outcome.
Before the trial, Mr. Hoare tried to claim that the person in the footage was in fact his brother, but that was a lie too.
There was no resemblance to his brother at all.
The case proceeded to trial. Despite the formidable amount of evidence against him, Michael initially pleaded not guilty. But the footage was so compelling that something highly unusual happened in court.
Sometime into the trial, the judge stopped the proceedings and suggested that it would have been within Mr. Hoare's best interests if he pleaded guilty. He did eventually plead guilty and received a 6-month suspended sentence for 12 months. For us, actually getting the genuine claim settled quickly and efficiently and weeding out these fraudulent claims is a good day's work.
A road crash gang that targets innocent drivers.
I think the whole experience for the young girl was shocking and terrifying.
And some photos of crash damage are decidedly dodgy.
The expert found that those images had been tampered with, they'd been altered, they'd been taken from different cameras.
In the fight against the growing problem of insurance fraud, an elite police squad have come together to form IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Departments.
Insurance fraud isn't a victimless crime. £50 of each premium you pay each year goes to the fraudsters. We have been set up to tackle that problem.
This dedicated team works tirelessly to bang up the crooks and con men getting rich off other people's money.
Please get back!
It is our intention to create a climate of fear for the fraudster. There's every chance that an IFED detective may come knocking on their door to arrest them for committing an insurance fraud.
Police, don't move, stay where you are!
By April 2012, after only 6 months of operating, they had already busted 80 fraudsters, adding up to £12 million of fraud under investigation.
These people are criminals. These are nasty people. They don't go out to work on a Monday morning like most people do. Their work is submitting insurance fraud claims.
Today, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department is investigating a suspected car insurance fraud. It believes a multi-car incident was completely staged. The collision involved a convoy of 3 cars driven by people who knew each other and were all travelling to the same place. DS Mark Forster and his team are aiming to make 3 arrests.
The guy we're going to see first off this morning is his involvement when he was driving at the back of the convoy and is the vehicle that has allegedly caused this accident. The vehicle that was at the front of the convoy, front of the 3 vehicles, was a sports car. We suspect, or the whole reason for this accident claim and this insurance claim was in order to get the sports car done up. There was large repair costs that were submitted to the insurers, PI, personal injury claims, replacement vehicle hire, credit exchange, and also even right the way down to recovery costs. But it totalled somewhere in the region of £80,000.
They believe the first suspect on the list was the driver of the car at the back of the convoy, who supposedly caused the crash by driving into the vehicle in front. It's 6:30 in the morning when Mark and his team arrive at the address. The father of the suspect comes out to meet them and wants to know what's going on.
London Police. It's Mike. We want to speak to him in connection to an insurance fraud that we believe he's involved in. That's all the detail I can give you, sir.
Right.
Okay. I can speak to him more about it, but I can't yourself. I take it you are, you're his father?
I'm his father, yeah.
Okay. Does he reside here, sir?
Yes, he
is.
He's in bed and he doesn't need to be disturbed at the moment.
Well, we need to speak to him, sir.
He reveals the first suspect is in the house, and the man in question eventually comes to talk to Mark.
We need to speak to you today.
Okay.
In relation to a matter that's been referred to us.
Right.
In relation to what we suspect is insurance fraud.
They take him down to the local police station for questioning. With 2 arrests still to be made, IFED gets back on the road.
He's just been booked in and just been put in a cell. He just came out with it, indicated that he knew what it was all about and said that he didn't see any point in lying about any involvement. So I don't know what he's going to say on interview. We obviously didn't question him any further. But he asked if we were picking up any of the others that were involved, was his exact words. So what exactly that means, I don't know.
Next stop for the IFED team is a property where they believe the second and third suspects will both be. The second suspect was a passenger and put in a claim for personal injury. The third suspect is the owner of the sports car.
We think all these lads have got together, basically come up with this plan and decided to make up this accident and put in numerous claims from it.
They arrive at the property and are hopeful both suspects will be in. After securing the back of the building, they prepare to enter through the front. It's vital to the success of the case that they find and question the 2 suspects. But will they be at home?
How many plants you got?
9.
9. I'm further arresting you on suspicion of cultivation of cannabis.
Criminal gangs that commit car insurance fraud will stop at nothing to make a quick buck, and they don't care whose lives they're putting at risk. One such gang operated on the outskirts of London, and what they did endangered countless road users. They came to the attention of Detective Inspector Dave Hindmarsh, who heads up a special Met Police traffic unit. His team was set up to combat the organised criminal gangs who commit car insurance fraud through road traffic collisions.
Our team came across the gang for Operation Coronado, initially as a result of anonymous Crime Stoppers information.
The gang was using a dangerous technique the Met traffic unit are well used to seeing on the UK's roads: the induced collision. First, the gang choose a victim. Then they move their two cars into position in front of the target. Gang car number 1 then slams on its brakes. Gang car 2 reacts by braking hard, resulting in a rear-end shunt from the victim. Gang car 1 then turns off at the next possible turning, pretending to be unaware of the crash. It's highly dangerous, and the consequences for other road users could be deadly. Operation Coronado was launched to gather proof of what was going on. The traffic unit set up video surveillance. It wasn't long before the intelligence they gathered showed the gang was working in a very specific area.
They go around the roundabout on the A127 some 9 times looking for their victim, their target.
The surveillance footage shows a black Golf and a green Saab, circling for over 6 minutes as they choose their prey. Eventually, they identify a suitable innocent driver.
The Golf brakes and turns left away from the Saab. The Saab brakes, over-exaggerates its braking and stops. Unfortunately, the young girl driving crashed into the back of their Saab, and then she in turn was hit by a white van.
The crash happens on the other side of the roundabout, and the Covert filming team just catches the end of the incident.
I think they chose that particular victim because she was driving a relatively nice car, and she was a lone female, so she's not going to cause them any problems, and the likelihood is that she would be insured.
What was planned as a shunt had in seconds become a multi-vehicle pile-up.
I think the whole experience for the young girl was shocking and terrifying, not only to crash into a vehicle, but then to be hit from the rear.
But that's of zero concern to the gang, who waste no time in collecting their victims' insurance details so they can make a claim. To make the case stand up, the police needed to prove beyond doubt that there was a link between the two cars being driven by the gang members.
We can show that there is association before or after between both parties, then it assists us, and it is quite crucial in providing the best possible evidence to the jury.
The surveillance continued, and before long the gang is spotted trawling the roads for another victim. This time they're filmed inducing a collision on a motorway slip road. Car 1 brakes hard, Car 2 brakes even harder, and the target can't avoid crashing into the back of them. To ensure they have indisputable evidence, the police unit continue to trail the gang. Eventually their persistence pays off when both cars stop at a petrol station car park.
The meeting up at the petrol station shows association. It shows that the driver of the Golf and the driver of the Saab are known to each other. They've met up before. They've then caused a crash, which clearly is no random act. This was an induced collision done so that they could commit fraud against the insurance industry.
The evidence was impossible to argue with, and the gang was brought to justice with 12 defendants sentenced to a total of 19 years and 6 months. It was another successful result for the traffic unit, but there are still other fraudsters on the roads who care nothing for the safety of others.
It is a matter of time before someone is seriously hurt, and my team will use every method available in order to catch them, and that will be overt tactics, covert tactics, the use of the helicopter, the use of surveillance teams. Any tactic that we can think of, we will use to catch these people.
Technology is increasingly used to detect fraud, but in some cases it's used to create fraud too. However, insurers are working hard to stay one click ahead, as this next case demonstrates. Robin Reams is the Chief Claims Officer for an insurance company. They were contacted by a policyholder who reported an incident involving their vehicle.
The claim was for damage to a vehicle. It was a total loss, so quite significant damage to a car, approximately £10,000 worth, which would mean it was not something that we would repair.
Photos of the wreckage were sent to the insurer. standard procedure for a claim of this size. But there was something about the images that was less than picture perfect.
Our suspicions were aroused because the photographs that we received of the damage to the car didn't look right. What struck us in particular was the damage to the front of the car. The quality of the photographs around the damage to the tyres and the front wheels were not consistent with the photograph quality of the rest of the car.
The case clearly required further scrutiny, so the insurer called in an expert to put the evidence under the microscope. Grant Ruffley is the forensic IT consultant asked to examine the images.
There's several methods we can look at to see if these images have been tampered with in any way. A lot of these images come from digital cameras and they hold a signature to the images similar to a fingerprint, which tells you where the picture was taken, what date, time, what exposure levels, in this case digital fingerprint of these images removed.
The absence of this kind of data indicates that images have been altered from their original form. This didn't necessarily prove that the photos had been tampered with, but then other evidence started to mount up.
The images varied from very low resolution images to very high resolution images, which wasn't consistent with a general use of a digital camera.
The inconsistency is particularly noticeable in this picture of the interior.
As you can see here, it's a very high resolution image, consistent with professional photographer. Somebody to take this type of shot would take probably 2 or 3 hours.
The discrepancies continued in other shots.
As you can see, the alloy wheel here is very rugby shaped as opposed to a normal wheel as you would expect round, especially with the wall of the tyre. It's very thick at the top here and then very thin and goes virtually into nothing on the back of the alloy wheel there. This photo has been manipulated to show an alloy wheel which maybe wasn't on the vehicle at the time of the incident. It seems to be a better standard of alloy wheel than probably the one originally on the vehicle.
Not only were the pictures being altered, new elements were actually being added on, and the evidence of manipulation didn't stop there.
The airbags in this image are quite visible, and as you can see from this image here, there's no airbags visible in the windscreen.
Which leads to an unavoidable conclusion.
It could be possible that the person who's claiming for this vehicle is trying to insinuate it was a high-impact collision or hoping to have the vehicle written off.
The evidence of fraud was stacking up.
Our final conclusion with regards to the analysis of these photographs were in fact that they were poorly edited, and as such we believe that they were used in order to put forward a fraudulent claim.
A report of the examination was compiled and passed back to the insurer.
The expert found that those images had been tampered with, they'd been altered, they'd been taken from different cameras, and that the images that we had been sent showing damage to the car was not actually a true reflection of that damage.
A fraudulent claim was clearly being made, but on investigation, the insurer found that the driver of the wrecked vehicle was totally innocent. So they looked again at the other people who had been involved in the claim, the salvage yard and the assessor. What they uncovered next indicated a much more organised outfit.
The salvage yard sent the assessor some photographs of the actual car. The assessor then doctored those to superimpose damage from a similar vehicle that had more significant damage done to it, in order that that vehicle would be written off, when the real case was it probably was a car that could have been repaired at little value. The salvage agent would then be free to repair it and make a significant profit on selling it on later.
Although the case didn't result in a prosecution, the insurer recovered their losses. They're also able to recognise and combat this type of fraud more easily.
I think what surprised us was the lengths that somebody would go to doctor a photograph and actually not do it terribly well. But it is an indication of the lengths that many people will go to commit fraud, and the way that we, Swiftcover, need to have highly trained people to identify potential fraud, new methods, new ways of working, new scams, and that is a constant challenge for us.
IFED has come to arrest 3 suspects who they believe are connected to a suspected car insurance fraud. They arrested the first one early that morning and are pursuing the remaining 2 suspects. The trail has led them to a second property. The IFED team is optimistic they will find both suspects inside.
We're in.
As they enter the property, they are met by the second suspect.
All right, fella. Firstly, okay, I need to speak to you today regarding an allegation that's been made where it's alleged that you're involved in a conspiracy to defraud insurance companies. No. All right, hear me out, yeah? Okay, so in relation to that offence and that allegation, I'm arresting you on suspicion of conspiracy to defraud, and we'll be looking to interview you later on this morning.
Although there's no sign of the third suspect in the flat, they make an important discovery of another kind.
How many plants you got? 9. 9? I'm further arresting you on suspicion of cultivation of cannabis. All right, so in relation to that offence of cultivation of cannabis, I remind you are under caution. All right?
Sorry, mate.
All right, no problem.
I'm proper scared now.
It's all right.
I don't like dealing with people on the street. I smoke weed, I've got my own bombs. I just sit in here and smoke weed.
That's the gentleman who we believe has submitted the PI claim. He was the passenger. Obviously, we've gone in there. I've arrested him in relation to that conspiracy to defraud. And we've uncovered there a sort of small little cultivation of cannabis sort of factory, if you like. He's got all the aircon machine and everything else. He's got about, he said, 9 plants in there, so he's cultivating cannabis, although he says it's for his own personal use. It's quite a lot of cannabis.
Birthday yesterday.
Sorry?
It's my birthday yesterday.
Happy birthday for yesterday.
You're in it.
Take a seat. Try and drive carefully.
The search continues for the third suspect, the owner of the sports car.
We're on our way now to a company address where we know that one of the individuals involved in this fake claim is it's his place of work, basically. They're like the body repair shop, and a lot of the repairs to the damage and things were meant to have been done through this company. So we've got 2 arrested so far, as you're aware. We're going to go and pick up this guy. He'll be the third. First chap this morning has been interviewed. Scott's interviewed him this morning. He's just come out of interview, and the guy's admitted on interview that this accident is a complete fabrication. 2 of the vehicles were taken to the scene where the accident was meant to happen, and one was deliberately driven down the side of the other. The rest of the damage was then caused back at body repair shop in the yard there, and they've caused damage to 2 of the other vehicles, and then just got together, put a claim in, alleging that the accident has occurred. So that's quite good progress for us.
With the first suspect's confession, the case is looking strong, but IFED still needs to arrest and question the third suspect.
Listen. Hello, mate. I'm Mark Fulson from City London Police, okay, Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department. Right. Okay. I need to speak to you about an allegation that's been made, okay, where the allegation is that you have conspired with others to defraud insurance company, all right, namely the all right. So in relation to that, okay, I'm going to have to arrest you, okay? You don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention, when questioned, something which you later rely on in court. Okay. Anything you do say may be given evidence. And that's in relation, like I say, conspiracy to defraud, okay? We have to take you away now, okay? Is this your boss here, or are you in charge, or whatever?
I'm in charge, yeah.
Right, stick it in the cage, mate. All right, jump in. It's gone very, very smoothly. Very pleased that we've had one interview where the suspect has admitted that this is completely a fraud, and I fully expect that these 3 individuals will be charged in the very near future. So the message is, if you are committing this type of fraud and you continue to do so, then you'll probably get a visit from officers from the City of London Police.
With all the suspects tracked down and arrested, IFED has achieved its objective. The investigation is ongoing, but the confession of the first suspect means the case is looking strong. It's been another successful day for the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department. Insurance fraud in the UK is reaching epidemic levels, and it's costing us billions of pounds every year. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injury claims, even fake deaths. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year, it's adding up to £50 to your insurance bill. Insurers are fighting back, armed with covert surveillance systems.
The CCTV cameras are the best tool we've got in our fight against fraud.
Sophisticated data analysis techniques.
This is connected to a bank account and a second mobile phone number.
And a newly formed dedicated police unit.
Police, get back!
They're catching the criminals red-handed. All those con men, scammers, cheats on the fiddle, now they're caught in the act, and claimed and shamed. Today, a specialist police fraud unit is on the hunt for fake pet insurance claims. A crash for cash gang pick a big victim.
And the infectious brake, yeah, got it.
And an insurer is taken for a ride.
This is a guy who claims that he'll never be able to work again and is in pretty well constant pain.
All of these collisions are crash for cash attempts. Crash for cash is a term given to collisions executed in order to make money from motor insurance policies. And it's rife. A recent poll found that 5% of drivers under the age of 35 have staged an accident in order to make a fraudulent insurance claim. But crash for cash is not an opportunistic crime. It's organised, often by gangs. Simply slamming on the brakes in front of a victim would attract suspicion, so the crash gangs have evolved a devious two-car tactic. First, the gang choose a victim. Then they move their two cars into position in front of the target. Gang car number 1 then slams on its brakes. Gang car 2 reacts by braking hard, resulting in a rear-end shunt from the victim. Gang car 1 then turns off at the next possible turning, pretending to be unaware of the crash. The march of the crash for cash gangs isn't going unchecked. A specialist unit from the Metropolitan Police is determined to remove these fraudsters from our roads.
Any tactic that we can think of, we will use to catch these people.
One of the unit's most powerful tools is video surveillance.
Both vehicles now in the offside lane of 2.
It's September 2007. A crash for cash gang is being filmed on the A41. The gang is setting up a grocery van for a smash.
Yes, it's the offside lane towards the Mike 25. And
the gang didn't randomly pick the grocery van as a victim. They chose it because it's a fleet vehicle.
The reason for choosing a fleet vehicle is that they're insured, and that's what they're interested in. They're interested in whoever hits them is insured, so they can maximise their claim and not be worried about being run into by a non-insured driver.
The gang move in on the innocent van driver. Car number 1 is about to slam on its brakes, forcing car 2 to react.
Yes, it's the offside lane towards the Mike 25. And the infectious brake, yeah, got it. Yeah.
Car 1, the decoy, has driven off, leaving car 2 to make the claim against the innocent grocer.
Yeah, the lorry's now just gone into the back of the Jaguar.
And have obtained.
We have obtained.
We started looking at this organised criminal gang.
Asian male 1 now out of the vehicle, and the subject.
This smash was one of 3 claims the gang made, totalling £55,000. Thanks to the video evidence, they didn't keep a penny.
All 6 were convicted. The main ringleader receiving some 8 months imprisonment, and the remaining 5 2-year suspended sentences.
These fraudsters were off the roads, but the Met Traffic Unit is fighting a constant battle against crash for cash gangs. In the autumn of 2009, the unit discovered another crash gang, and once again a fleet vehicle was the target.
It involved three lads who decided to basically create a slam-on in front of a vehicle.
The blue car ahead is planning to execute a crash-for-cash manoeuvre. They're not using a decoy car and simply plan to surprise the driver of the fleet vehicle. The van driver falls into their trap.
The reason they stated for them to do an emergency stop was because there was a bus stop, and there was a bus at the bus stop, and there was a woman stepping off the bus onto the road, and that was the reason why they stopped.
But the fraudsters are out of luck, as the camera fitted to the fleet vehicle reveals the truth of the matter.
As you see on the footage, there is a bus stop, but there is no bus, and there certainly isn't a woman stepping onto the road. When I saw the evidence, I thought it was very audacious, and I was very surprised that someone could be so blatant just to slam on for no apparent reason in the middle of a busy junction on a busy road, with no regard whatsoever to the chaos that causes.
At Croydon Crown Court, all 3 occupants of the car were found guilty of fraud by false representation, and each sentenced to 3 months imprisonment. A satisfactory outcome for the owners of the fleet vehicle, online grocer Ocado.
Specifically targeting our drivers is very distressing for them. It feels a bit like being mugged. It also affects their professional pride in the job that they do. Where we believe there's a fraudulent crash, we will pursue it right through the court system. There's no debate about that at all. We'll take it all the way.
This sort of crime is probably a growing trend in this country now. If people go to prison, they might think twice about doing it.
Brake, 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 yeah.
There is absolutely the potential that a staged fraudulent accident can kill someone. There's no doubt about that. It's an accident, and it has all the same dangers as any other road accident.
A police unit raids the home of a suspected insurance fraudster.
Yeah, okay.
A corner shop in Barnsley gets torched.
She lied to her family, she's lied to her friends, and she lied to the police about what happened.
And a private investigator closes in on a shamed claimer.
During the footage, it clearly shows him going up 40, 50 feet high in order to get on a ride.
In the fight against the growing problem of insurance fraud, an elite police squad have come together to form IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
Insurance fraudsters are hitting us in our pockets. That's not right. IFED have been set up to combat that problem, and we will do so by making arrests all over the country.
This dedicated team works tirelessly to bang up the crooks and con men getting rich off other people's money.
If you commit insurance fraud, there's every chance that IFED are going to come knocking on your door and bringing you to justice.
Police, don't move, stay where you are!
By April 2012, after only 6 months of operating, they had already busted 80 fraudsters, adding up to £12 million of fraud under investigation.
Insurance fraud is seen at the moment as an easy touch. IFED are setting out to stop that and make these organised crime groups think again.
IFED investigates every type of insurance fraud: personal injury, buildings, holiday, even pet insurance fraud. Fraudulent pet insurance claims rose from £420,000 in 2009 to £1.92 million in 2011, a nearly 5-fold increase over 2 years. Today, IFED is planning a raid on a suspect known to have a long track record of claiming against multiple insurance policies.
I've in fact dealt with her earlier this year about a number of cases, in fact 8 cases in total. This time when I arrest her, I'm going to have to be interviewing her about another 20 cases.
As well as making numerous home contents claims, she has submitted a large number of pet insurance claims with different insurers.
I'm just getting the paperwork together, and we're going to have to move quite quickly on this and arrest her sooner rather than later, because the claims keep on coming in.
On the raid, the IFED team will be keen to establish whether any of the supposedly deceased dogs are still alive.
We've got information to suggest there is one Chihuahua which is alive, but we think there might be other dogs there as well. We're also going to be looking for computers and telephones, and you know, for evidence of her applying for the insurance policies. It's hard to separate, you know, fact from fiction. She comes up with a whole lot of stories, so we're going to have to be careful with the way we deal with her.
The team members arrive outside the suspect's house. Not knowing what to expect, they leave nothing to chance and put on protective equipment.
Hello, Alex Cooley. Yeah, we met in January, didn't we?
What's happened now?
Oh, do you want to take a seat? No, okay. Take a seat and I'll explain. I'm going to arrest you for a whole number of fake insurance claims.
With access to the property gained, T.I. Cooley explains to the suspects what they're looking for.
We need to look for evidence, basically to confirm what dogs you have, yeah, and to look for documentation to the insurance policies, okay? So, how many Chihuahuas? I saw one standing up.
Staffy type pit bull, so just go easy. He looks like he's ready to jump.
Yeah, okay. Your dog left.
To shut that door, I don't intend to search that.
We do need to get her to the police station as soon as practical. We're going to have a look and we're going to search the house for evidence relating to the insurance fraud.
Before taking the suspect into custody, the IFED team ask her to direct them to any documents relating to insurance.
Is there anything here that you can help us with to quicken our search? Any paperwork relating to those insurance claims?
What, the claims that's gone on already, or?
Anything to do with insurance? Any claims?
I had no claims of these. Is that one?
Thank you. You just place it on there for us.
Sorry, yeah.
Anything like that.
The suspect is compliant. She shows the team where to find the paperwork it has come for.
If you just leave that there, we'll make deals, we won't take it with us. Yeah.
Is there anything upstairs in your bedroom?
The suspect is taken into custody for further questioning, leaving IFED to search the whole house for evidence of multiple fraudulent pet insurance claims. IFED's search for evidence keeps running into little interruptions. Personal injury insurance exists to help us when, due to an accident, we are unable to work or need money for extra care. And like motor insurance, it's being abused by dishonest claimants. The number of personal injury claims received by insurers leapt 72% between 2002 and 2010, a figure that is set to rise. In 2007, this man was injured at work.
The claimant had been operating a burger van. He was mopping up at the end of the day, and somebody had collided with the rear of it, as a result of which he had sustained damage to both knees.
Due to his knee injuries, the burger van owner sought compensation. Stating that he was no longer able to work, he claimed for £425,000 in lost future earnings. On top of that, he made a further claim for adaptations to his property.
Shortly after the firm was instructed, we received a request for an interim payment to enable this guy to adapt his house to fit a through lift, a downstairs bathroom and a downstairs toilet, suggesting a very high level of disability indeed.
This was an unforeseen expense for the insurer, but before they paid out on any adaptations to the burger van owner's house, some information about the claimant was discovered.
Some medical evidence, though, emerged which suggested that he had convictions for fraud and dishonesty, as a result of which they became particularly interested in the possibility that this claim might be one that they should be looking at very hard.
The insurer was suspicious of the claimant. They decided to call in the help of a private investigator.
Insurers will sometimes commission surveillance when they believe that the injury which is being claimed does not support the level of damages which is beginning to emerge, and that was certainly the case here.
The nature of his work means the investigator needs to remain anonymous.
We specialise in surveillance as a company, and as a percentage, 75% of the surveillance we carry out is insurance fraud or insurance-related surveillance.
Due to an anonymous tip-off, the private investigator was instructed to film the claimant for a whole Sunday.
The solicitor was very keen for us to place the claimant under surveillance that particular weekend, so it was one Friday evening that I received a call on my mobile from the solicitor, and we dispatched a surveillance team. You know, it's very short notice for us to get the surveillance team and unit together and deployed out to the claimant's home address. He did come out of the house in the morning, seemed to be loading up and sorting out his car. Well, what unfolded was incredible, really.
The claimant was on a day trip to an amusement park. After buying himself a ticket, the private investigator entered the park and set about surveying the claimant.
We filmed him as and when it was possible. At the theme park, he was going on rides, and he did have a walking stick with him, but it didn't seem as though he was using it in a weight-bearing capacity.
The video evidence showed a man capable of walking without the aid of a stick and comfortably handling a fairground mallet.
Later on during the day, you know the strongman hammer, you bang it with a mallet and up it goes and you're trying to hit the bell. He was filmed using one of those. This is a guy who claims that he'll never be able to work again. He's totally restricted with his mobility and is in pretty well constant pain.
That day, his claim to need a stair lift and downstairs bathroom was also to be dispelled.
It's interesting that he claimed that he needed a ground floor bathroom and a stair lift. However, during the footage, it clearly shows him going up 40, 50 feet high in order to get on a ride.
The surveillance op filmed the claimant managing a 4-story ascent before shooting down an amusement ride.
At the end of the day, the camera does not lie, and you can't argue the case. The video footage clearly shows an individual who is exaggerating his symptoms. From the time he left his home address to going back after he'd been to the theme park, he was out for approximately 10 hours of the day.
In the face of such overwhelming evidence, the burger van owner had no choice but to accept a vastly reduced payout.
The result of all this was that a claim which was originally put at £800,000 settled for a very small fraction of that indeed. In addition to getting his small percentage of what he claimed, there was also a costs order against him. This is another case where I'd be very surprised if the claimant came out any better off than he went in.
I would say the general public would think, hang on a minute, I pay huge premiums for my motor insurance, for my household insurance, and they seem to be going up every single year, way above the rate of inflation. And the reason they're going up is because we have become a claim culture. This person's really exaggerating and they're defrauding the system. And as a result of these individuals, our claims are going through the roof.
Most business premises in the UK are insured against property damage. A sensible measure when you consider that in the UK in 2009, large-scale fire damage costs totalled £865 million. Shockingly, 40% of all fires at commercial premises are subsequently found to have been arson. Meet Sukhjit Kaur. She and her husband used to own D&S Super Save, a corner shop in Barnsley, South Yorkshire. D&S Super Save had been serving the needs of East Barnsley until a terrible event destroyed the family business.
It was 3:30 in the morning, the 9th of March 2010, when the police received a call from Mrs. Carr. Mrs. Carr was in a very hysterical state, and she was at a neighbour's address at the time. The neighbour took over the call, and the information was passed through the neighbour to the effect that 3 masked men had gone into Mrs. Carr's home address, held them knife point, her and her husband and a small child for a number of hours that had been held hostage at knife point, and just prior to leaving the address, the masked men set fire to the premises.
Her husband was also asked about the masked gang.
Mr. Singh maintained the same story, that 3 masked men had gone into the house, held them at knife point, and set fire to the premises.
Sukhjit and her husband claimed to have been subjected to a frightening attack, lost their livelihood, and nearly killed in their own home. Their neighbour, Jean Kay, was also affected by the fire.
The neighbour was very shook up. It was 3:30 in the morning. She was asleep in bed. She was awoken by the sound of an explosion, which was probably from aerosols within the store. When she woke, the house was smoke-filled. She did suffer from smoke inhalation, and she had to be taken to hospital for treatment. Had she not woke up, it could have been much, much more serious.
Having survived the ordeal, Mrs. Kaur informed her insurer of the event, submitting a claim for £166,000. With this payout, Sukhjit and her husband could rebuild their business. Their insurer began to process their claim, but soon hit a snag.
We discovered that she'd taken the policy out one day before the fire.
This coincidence raised the suspicion of the insurer, so they looked into the financial state of the couple. It didn't look good.
Mrs. Kaur told our loss adjuster that the business had been in financial difficulty for some years. They used to run a post office which went, and for the last 6-7 years they'd had great difficulty in surviving, and she'd borrowed lots of money from a local money lender. She didn't admit to the loss adjuster or to us exactly how much she owed, but we know, having done the background checks in terms of financial status, and this is in the public domain, that she owed up to, or she had CCJs to the value of £150,000.
With a business deeply in debt and a potential insurance payout of £166,000, the insurer had good reason to suspect Sukhjit and her husband were involved in the arson. So South Yorkshire Police brought her in for questioning.
When we first spoke to Mrs. Kaur, she broke down and told us that she was in a lot of debt and that she was involved. That led to her arrest, and she was formally interviewed at the police station. And it was during that interview that she confessed to being involved in setting the fire for the purpose of making an insurance claim.
Although she confessed to the crime, Sukhjit insisted the plan hadn't been her idea.
She owed a lot of money to the loan shark, and he wanted his money back. So what he suggested to her, put in a large insurance fraud. He would organise people to come into the shop at the dead of night and actually set the fire.
At Sheffield Crown Court, Sukhjit Kaur was sentenced to 5 years for conspiracy to defraud, later reduced to 4 years on appeal. For his part in the deception, her husband was sentenced to 3 years.
She had, of her own accord, managed to get herself into a lot of debt. She couldn't manage that debt. She could see no way out of that debt. She lied to her family, she's lied to her friends, and she lied to the police about what happened.
When we found out they'd been given custodial sentences, for us at Allianz, it was a very pleasing outcome. It sends a message out that insurance fraud is no longer a victimless crime. There are victims, and you won't get away with it.
Today, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department, IFED, has raided the property of a woman suspected of multiple attempts of pet insurance fraud. She's been taken into custody, leaving the team to search her property for evidence. Her boyfriend has just arrived outside.
Oh, the boyfriend's here, right, okay. She's just with a female officer because we're going to be questioning her today in police station. Well, she was dealt with for a number of offences earlier in the year, as you know. Unfortunately, there are offences which have occurred more recently, and some going back over the last couple of years.
IFED resumes its search. Just like the suspect, her boyfriend proves to be helpful in the hunt for evidence.
Succeed.
The search for evidence spreads to the first floor of the property.
I'll take these two because they're just related to her identity documents.
You give that back an highway.
Yeah, she'll be entitled to everything back.
In less than an hour, the team has unearthed several bags of potential evidence relating to pet insurance claims. Making the search more complicated is the fact that the suspect goes under several aliases.
That's the missus.
Do you missus?
Yeah.
Even after an hour, the team still isn't used to the smaller inhabitants of the house.
Oh, look around.
Who are you?
IFED has seen enough. It has a boot full of potential evidence, leaving the team confident of a conviction.
It is putting money on everyone's insurance policies because the fraud element is always taken into account by the insurers. So hopefully by arresting the suspect today, we'll make some small contribution towards turning things around, so that hopefully one day insurance premiums can start to come down.
If convicted of fraud, the suspect could face a punishing fine and a spell in prison. Insurance fraud in the UK is reaching epidemic levels, and it's costing us billions of pounds a year. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injury claims, even fake deaths. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year, it's adding up to £50 to your insurance bill. Insurers are fighting back. Armed with covert surveillance systems.
The equipment that we have to use has to be cutting edge. It's as simple as that.
Sophisticated data analysis techniques.
This is connected to a bank account and a second mobile phone number.
And a newly formed dedicated police unit.
Police, get back!
They're catching the criminals red-handed. All those con men, scammers, cheats on the fiddle, now they're caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Today, the fraud enforcement team confronts a gang of suspected insurance cheats.
Police.
A debt-ridden dentist fakes his own death.
She appeared to be upset, a few tears, but I didn't believe her.
And a footballer who claimed he couldn't play has some unwanted spectators at his home ground.
Claimant is now walking towards the buildings to the right of the stadium.
Welcome to Doncaster, home of James Shackell. James used to be a promising footballer with the possibility of a professional career ahead of him. That was until 2002, when he was involved in a car crash, leaving James very badly injured. Because the car he was in was uninsured, the bill for James's injuries had to be footed by the MIB, the Motor Insurers Bureau.
The MIB is a not-for-profit organisation funded by the insurance industry, set up purely to provide a means of compensation for victims of both uninsured and untraced driving.
James was not going to be a professional sportsman, but at least he had financial security. The MIB had already paid £30,000 to the crock footballer, with tens of thousands more to hopefully follow. Over time, James experienced a gradual improvement in his condition. But in 2008, 6 years after the crash, an outlandish request for a further £1.3 million caused the MIB to look again.
Suddenly we were faced with a claim for accommodation. He was saying he needed single-storey accommodation. He was saying he needed large amounts of personal care to look after him. This didn't fit with the pattern of the injuries and the recovery that he'd been making up to that point.
This information was surprising to the MIB. Wanting to know more, it called in some expert snoops. If you want to spy on someone, the surveillance group will get the job done. It's got a team of highly trained operatives who know how to follow your every move.
We live in a surveillance society. Fraudsters are aware that they might be placed under surveillance. And to that end, we have to stay one step ahead of the game and ahead of them. That means that we have to tailor our methods accordingly, and the equipment that we have to use has to be cutting edge. It's as simple as that. Ultimately, our task is to gain an objective slice of their life. So it's simply a case of turning up and maximising the amount of footage that we can get so that others within the legal process can form a good, objective opinion of someone's capabilities.
Entering the passenger side, door closed.
Roger.
Tim and his team were given the job of filming the local soccer star.
The claimant now a passenger, backseat of a red Peugeot.
And one cold December afternoon, it found that despite suffering from difficulty concentrating,
Claimant is now walking towards the buildings to the right of the stadium.
severe fatigue, poor motivation and poor coordination,
Claimant now unsighted towards the changing rooms.
and aching in his neck and ankles, James Schickel was still capable of this.
The footage shows effectively James Schickel playing a game of football in a normal manner, running from one end of the pitch to the other and making minute decisions in kind of microseconds, whether he should head the ball, whether he should kick the ball, all those types of things. And this was clearly a man who said that he needed constant assistance from his father, and clearly his father wasn't there running beside him, telling him to score, telling him to kick the ball, telling him to head the ball. So I think that the footage really speaks volumes in this case.
Mr. Schickel was playing football for Erdlington Rovers. He had recently obtained a Man of the Match award. He was captain of the side.
I guess he felt that no one really cared, or no one would be kind of monitoring his activity overall.
This kind of behaviour is simply not acceptable. It's not acceptable to MIB, it's not acceptable to the insurance industry, and clearly the courts support that view by the extent of the sentences.
It's not okay to exaggerate. It's not okay to gain an extra amount of money from an insurer. It's still lying, and when someone lies, it's attempting to defraud someone.
James was sentenced to 12 months for contempt of court after submitting an exaggerated claim for £1.35 million. His father, Robert Schickel, also received a year's imprisonment for supporting his son's claim.
The money, ultimately, that MIB pay and the cost of running MIB all comes from premium-paying motorists. It's yours and my premium that are funding the claims that we pay.
A dodgy dentist comes back from the grave.
It takes a hard-hearted individual, I believe, to put his family through what they've been put through.
And a London crash-for-cash gang gets busted.
And he's now associating with vehicle 2 and the occupants.
In the fight against the growing problem of insurance fraud, an elite police squad has come together to form IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
Insurance fraud isn't a victimless crime. £50 of each premium you pay each year goes to the fraudsters. We have been set up to tackle that problem.
This dedicated team works tirelessly to bang up the crooks and conmen getting rich off other people's money.
Please get back!
It is our intention to create a climate of fear for the fraudster. There's every chance that an IFED detective may come knocking on their door to arrest them for committing an insurance fraud.
Police, don't move, stay where you are!
By April 2012, after only 6 months of operating, it had already busted 80 fraudsters, adding up to £12 million of fraud under investigation.
These people are criminals. These are nasty people. They don't go out to work on a Monday morning like most people do. Their work is submitting insurance fraud claims.
It's basically an investigation into organised motor vehicle fraud. There's 4 main targets today. They basically incept insurance policies on motor vehicles that they don't own. Then that vehicle is involved in an accident, either staged or entirely made up. And then they claim for recovery of the third-party vehicle, storage costs, hire cars and personal injury claims. There's 2 main addresses we've got Section 8 warrants for. Okay.
The group being targeted by IFED is thought to specialise in a specific type of motor insurance fraud, crash for cash. Crash for cash is a term given to collisions executed in order to make money from motor insurance policies. And it's big business. There are an estimated 30,000 crash for cash incidents per year on Britain's roads, valued at least £350 million. Adding an average of £44 to your motor insurance bill every year. It's time for IFED to move in on the suspects.
There's quite a large number of people involved in fraud, incepting insurance policies and being named as either third-party drivers, claiming hire car costs, storage costs and personal injury. But we've identified 4 main suspects who we're looking to arrest today.
IFED's first destination is a pair of heavily guarded neighbouring houses. The buildings are smothered in CCTV cameras. IFED hopes to search for evidence of fraud at the properties, but has no idea how many potential suspects will be standing in its way. There's no sign of life from the house on the right, but the team find the house on the left unlocked. Inside, they discover a suspect with his pockets full of cash, but no incriminating paperwork.
We just found some money, £1,000 in the pocket of one of the suspects. I'll just leave that with you.
What have been next for conspiracy to fraud? He's getting a bit playful that one there.
Do you want it? If you come then.
Where are your shoes?
So who nicked him, Barry? You?
On the stairs, yeah.
Right,
The other house has not been so easy to access, but IFED has found a small open window.
He's in.
Police! Open the door, please. Please. Good morning. Good morning, we've got a warrant to search this address.
Hello. City London Police, we're executing a search warrant. Do you want to get yourself up?
4 startled occupants are turfed out of bed.
Do you want to jump up out of bed and we'll come and speak to you downstairs? Okay? I'll explain exactly what's happening.
No, that is my uncle came back.
Right, all take a seat, take a seat. Okay, we've got a warrant to search this address.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I'm just telling you what's happening. We're going to search the address. It's in relation to conspiracy to defraud insurance companies. Okay, motor vehicle fraud.
No, nobody.
I'm just telling you what we said. That's right. The warrant relates to motor vehicle fraud, okay? So we're going to search this address.
All right.
You understand? Right, first of all, you're under arrest for conspiracy to defraud, okay? You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention, when questioned, something which you later on in court.
What fraud? I haven't done no
Motor vehicle fraud.
I haven't done no motor vehicle.
Okay, you can tell me in the interview, okay?
All right.
Yeah, should we just sit him out of the way for a time, don't you?
IFED makes 2 arrests, but the key suspect is nowhere to be seen. So they start the search for the hard evidence needed to get the convictions.
We're looking for items associated with motor insurance fraud, so computers, mobile phones, any documentation relating to insurance policies. We'll take that phone and charger.
So this one will be bedroom 3.
The search has only just begun when there is a breakthrough in the hunt for the missing suspect.
Yes, it's going. No, this is it.
Could this be their man?
Can we come in? I'll just explain to you what's going on. You're burning the house down.
Crash for cash gangs operate all over Britain. Most choose a set area or even a regular stretch of road on which to operate. Simply slamming on their brakes in front of a victim would attract suspicion, so the crash gangs have evolved a devious two-car tactic. First, the gang chooses a victim. Then they move their 2 cars into position in front of the target. Gang car number 1 then slams on its brakes. Gang car 2 reacts by braking hard, resulting in a rear-end shunt from the victim. Gang car 1 then turns off at the next possible turning, pretending to be unaware of the crash. One crash gang chose northwest London as their hunting ground, frequently crashing for cash on London's North Circular. What the gang didn't count on was a dedicated unit from the Met Police filming their every move.
They were a gang based up in northwest London who were on a daily basis slamming on in front of vehicles so they can make claims through various accident management companies and put in personal injury claims.
The Met wanted the gang off the roads, so it set about gathering evidence. For a bird's eye view of the gang at work, DC Eastick called in the help of the Met Police helicopter.
We used the helicopter to try and film the gang causing these accidents because it's more graphic from the air when you see vehicles slamming on and the other vehicle driving off and no party of it, what we call the decoy vehicle. It also demonstrates quite clearly to the jury what is going on.
Dispatched at the last minute, the police helicopter just manages to capture the crash gang as it springs its trap. At the top of the screen, Gang Car 1 is about to be seen braking hard. Gang Car 2 reacts, forcing the victim in the white transit van to smash into it. Minutes later, the occupants of the 2 cars meet up. The crash footage captured by the helicopter was not very clear. DC Eastick and his team would need better evidence to get the gang convicted. Then, one fateful day in the summer of 2009, they filmed the gang having a very busy day on North London's roads. It's 12:40 on the 29th of July 2009. The police are tailing the gang. Gang Car 1 and 2 are setting up their latest victim for a smash. This time, they're foiled by the quick reactions of the intended victim. 3 hours later, they come across the gang after a reckless crash on a motorway slip road. The innocent victim has accepted responsibility for the crash and hands over his details. The fraudsters, absorbed in fleecing their latest victim, are completely unaware of the hazard they created. Still, the Met had not captured indisputable evidence that these incidents were staged. They had to prove that these cars were working as a team, and that afternoon, their patience was to be rewarded. The 2 gang cars are observed filling up at a petrol station. Then, the gang members do something that seals the case for the police.
And he's now associating with vehicle 2 and the occupants.
The high five really was mission accomplished, because that demonstrates that they obviously had a mission for that day and they accomplished that mission, and that was to cause an accident. When this case went to court, the video evidence that we obtained was so compelling that they really had no choice but to plead guilty at the earliest opportunity, which resulted in one of them getting 8 months imprisonment and 2 of the others getting 6 months imprisonment.
Personally, I think they're outrageous. It's costing me and every other motor policy holder an extra £40 or £50. If you're involved in a crash, take pictures of all the individuals, take pictures of the damage to their vehicle, not only your vehicle but their vehicle. It's evidence later on that you can provide to your insurance company that might just protect your no claims bonus and prove that this was a fraud.
Most insurance companies employ specialist fraud investigators who can spot a suspicious claim from looking at just a few pieces of paperwork, meaning it's hard to elude them, even from beyond the grave. Welcome to Barnstable. This peaceful Devonshire town used to be home to father of four, Emmanuel Paresis.
I think Emmanuel Paresis was viewed as a pillar of the community. As a dentist, you're held in high regard, obviously.
Earning a hefty £135,000 a year, Mr. Paresis should have lived a very comfortable life. But tragically, in 2009, during a trip to Jordan, he died in a car crash. His grieving wife received £51,000 in insurance payouts and was due to receive a further £1.8 million from his life insurance policies. But first, she had to wait. Insurers will always check a claim of this size and nature, so private investigator John Saunders was called in to investigate.
When someone dies overseas, insurance companies come to us asking for advice on documentation and so forth. And I think over the last 25 years I've worked in 74 countries I've been to investigate claims.
John started to look into the case and straight away found inconsistencies.
The story was that they'd spent August in Greece on holiday, and his wife came back with the children to the end of August, beginning of September, because they were starting school. And Emmanuel apparently had then taken his mother from Greece to see a heart specialist in Jordan, in Amman. It seems strange that he wanted to go all the way to Amman to see a heart specialist, when I'm sure there are very good heart specialists in Athens.
After a meeting with Mrs. Paresis, John's suspicions were raised even further.
When I interviewed the wife, she appeared to be upset, a few tears, but I didn't believe her. She didn't have sufficient knowledge. Had her husband died as claimed, I'd have expected her to have more information about where he was buried, who arranged the burial, who he was with at the time, which hospital he died in. But it was clear to me she wouldn't prepare herself for such questions and didn't know the answers, yet they were meant to be very close.
John had a hunch, but no evidence, so he jetted off to Greece to check out the paperwork. But everything looked above board. So he moved on to the scene of the crash, Jordan, where he made some important discoveries.
The death registration certificate was a fake document. There was no record at the cemetery of any burial. And then my visit to the Greek embassy there, where it appeared they'd been told all about the death by, I think it was Costas, a lawyer. When we looked at the embassy, looked at the documents and found that the lawyer had a Hotmail address. I thought it was rather unusual for a law firm to have a Hotmail address. And it was pretty clear to me that the lawyer didn't exist. It was Emmanuel Paresis taking on the role of the lawyer. So by that time we had more than sufficient evidence to show that he had not died.
John knew Mr. Paresis was alive, but had no idea where he was hiding. So he flew back to England and handed his evidence to the police. The job of finding the deceptive dentist was given to DI Mike West of the Devon and Cornwall Police.
I knew that it was going to be complex, and I knew that the inquiry needed to be focused. Paresis had stayed in Greece, we believe, waiting for the £1.8 million to roll in. But when that didn't happen, and certainly didn't happen anytime soon, he had to do something. He had a wife and 4 children in the UK to support.
A major breakthrough in the case occurred around 9 months after the fake death, when they received a tip-off that Paresis had resurfaced in Scotland, immediately alerting DI Mike West.
We identified the fact that Paresis was living under the name of Neil McLaren, and he was operating as a dentist within a surgery in Peterhead, within the Grampian area of Scotland.
After almost a year-long manhunt, the trail had come to an end. DI Mike West closed in on the resurrected dentist.
Paresis was arrested in the company of other family members. He certainly showed some surprise when we arrived at his doorstep. We identified a fraud kit which enabled him to fake his identity. It included official-looking stamps, documentation from various universities and seats of learning. He was obviously prepared for this and living a lie for a significant period of time.
For 3 months, Mr. and Mrs. Paresis had left their children thinking they had lost their dad.
It takes a hard-hearted individual, I believe, to put his family through what they've been put through, and the psychological damage can't be underestimated.
For her part, Mrs. Paresis was sentenced to 16 weeks. Mr. Paresis was jailed for 5 years on fraud charges and struck off the General Dental Council's register. His sentence was later reduced to 3 years. The Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department, IFED, is executing a raid at the first of 3 addresses. It suspects some occupants are linked to a crash for cash ring. The officers have already made 2 arrests. They've been bagging evidence at the raid properties for just under an hour and are trying to track down their outstanding suspect.
Just something maybe of interest, it's various mobile phones ringing, but one of them potentially has the name of the outstanding suspect coming up.
Has it?
Yeah. There is one outstanding, isn't there?
Yeah, does it keep coming up? It's the number, name,
yeah,
isn't it?
I believe so. It's a variation of the name.
Good morning, it's Sean Corrigan. How you doing? I've just got 3 body checks, please, if you want the details.
The 3 men being held downstairs are not believed to be fraudsters, but stored in one of their mobile phones is the number of the missing suspect.
Are these your phones? Yeah, I think the guy who we're trying to arrest is ringing them. Can you get his number up?
IFED gets access to the suspect's number.
It's PC Corrigan from B Station, you're right. The sooner we speak to you, the better. How long do you reckon you'll be? About half an hour. Can you make it any sooner? You'll try, okay.
Excellent.
Upstairs, the evidence is mounting.
Claimant solicitors and a certificate of motor insurance. Sorry to hear that you've been involved in a road traffic accident and have sustained injuries. Okay, this is exactly what we've been looking for. You know, you'd have expected someone involved in this kind of activity to keep a stash of documentation somewhere. It looks like we may have found it.
The outstanding suspect has, predictably, not shown up. With the evidence in the bag, the team follows a lead to a 3rd property.
You go in the back, mate, yeah? I'm from the City of London Police. Can I just come in? I'll just speak to you about what we're doing. Basically, we've got a warrant for this address, okay? Let me come in and I'll explain to you, all right?
Something burning.
Are you all right?
Yeah.
You're burning the house down? Can we come in? I'll just explain to you what's going on. Yeah? It's all right.
Is it off? Yeah, I've got everything sorted.
DCI Dave Wood is very interested in the burnt paper in the kitchen and toilet.
Well, it appeared from the time that it took us to travel from the previous search warrant addresses to here, which is a short journey, we only took about 7 or 8 minutes. In that time, I'm guessing communication has been passed into this premises where the lady who's opened the door to us eventually has burnt some evidence.
Despite the smokescreen, the IFED officers still find an armful of evidence and decide to arrest the suspect they came for.
Okay, you didn't have to say anything but arm your defence if you're not mentioning questions something later on in court, and if you do say maybe giving it evidence. Do you understand? Yeah. Okay.
The missing suspect has still not been arrested. All other suspects are currently on bail, and if convicted of insurance fraud, could face up to 10 years in prison. Insurance fraud in the UK is reaching epidemic levels, and it's costing us billions of pounds a year. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injury claims, even fake deaths. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year, it's adding up to £50 to your insurance bill. Insurers are fighting back, armed with covert surveillance systems.
How they think they can get away with it, I don't know, when the evidence from the camera is so clear.
Sophisticated data analysis techniques.
This is connected to a bank account and a second mobile phone number.
And a newly formed dedicated police unit.
Police, get back!
They're catching the criminals red-handed. All those con men, scammers, cheats on the fiddle, now they're caught in the act, and claimed and shamed. Today, a Whiplash claimant with an outlandish story.
She was arguing that she was in two places at once.
IFED raids a suspected fraud gang.
Open the door, it's going to get smashed in!
And the Lancashire police leave nothing to doubt.
You will be caught, and you will be punished, and your assets will be stripped from you.
Gloucester, not a place you'd associate with violent gang crime, but on the 11th of August 2007, 38-year-old local David Russell was found staggering near his home, covered in blood and with 7 nails buried in his body. He'd been the victim of a violent and unprovoked attack.
He spun me around, grabbed hold of my bottom of my T-shirt with one hand and then pushed what I now know to be a nail, this orange nail gun into my chest.
2 of the nails were buried in David Russell's forearm. More worryingly, another 5 had been pumped into his chest. 1 lodged just an inch from his heart. The attackers had not been found. DC Dean Morse was given the job of catching them.
Mr. Russell's allegation obviously sent, concern through the community. The last thing you want is reports of a gang going around with a nail gun and basically attacking people and obviously shooting them with nails.
From his hospital bed, David Russell expressed the fears held by the local community.
You can pick on a 30-odd-year-old bloke, they're going to pick on anybody, sort of thing, so...
His plea was to have a dramatic effect on the investigation. It attracted the attention of an old boss who had some interesting information about Mr. Russell for the police.
On his CV, when he was employed by the company, that he said that he had spent 18 years in the Royal Marines, that he had done 3 tours of duty in Northern Ireland, and that he had also served in the Gulf War.
Some of which were complete lies. So DC Morse did some research on the victim.
This then led me on to making inquiries with the Criminal Injuries Compensation Board. Criminal Injuries basically told me that he had reported a crime in Avon and Somerset in 2004.
And to his astonishment, DC Morse found that in that incident, David was the victim of an unmotivated attack. The weapon, a nail gun. The number of nails removed from his body, 7. On that occasion, his insurer paid out £4,400.
When you suddenly have a previous allegation, exactly the same number of nails, with a method of doing it, basically, that is exactly the same, you know that you've got somebody there who is either the unluckiest man in Britain or is a consummate liar. We went to arrest Mr. Russell, and he broke down fairly quickly in an interview and fully admitted that he had made up both the stories in Gloucester and down in Bristol.
David Russell appeared at Gloucester Crown Court. Pleading guilty, he was sentenced to 2.5 years imprisonment for perverting the course of justice.
He was very remorseful as to his actions, and he has fully regretted what's taken place.
The IFB sends out a warning to repeat offenders.
We now have all the tools at our disposal to be able to investigate and prosecute.
And a bus company faces a stubborn fraudster.
She, at great expense to the public purse, decided that she was going to plead not guilty.
In the fight against the growing problem of insurance fraud, an elite police squad have come together to form IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
Insurance fraudsters are hurting us in our pockets. That's not right. IFED have been set up to combat that problem, and we will do so by making arrests all over the country.
This dedicated team works tirelessly to bang up the crooks and con men, getting rich off other people's money.
If you commit insurance fraud, there's every chance that IFED are going to come knocking on your door and bringing you to justice.
Police, don't move, stay where you are!
By April 2012, after only 6 months of operating, it had already busted 80 fraudsters, adding up to £12 million of fraud under investigation.
Insurance fraud is seen at the moment as an easy touch. IFED are setting out to stop that and make these organised crime groups think again.
It's 5:40 a.m. and IFED is executing a multi-location raid on the members of a suspected fraudulent accident management company. These types of bogus outfits work by taking your car and making it look as though it's been in a crash with a second vehicle. They will then pay you to take responsibility for the bogus crash, leaving them to make a large claim for the damage to the second vehicle against your insurance company. IFED has one team preparing to raid a place of business and another at a residential address.
Right.
The team suspects that inside this flat lives a member who may have been involved in the fraudulent activity.
Open the door, it's going to get smashed in! Good lad.
Your safety in mind at the moment, so we'll do some searching in this lounge. We'll place some handcuffs on you, okay? Just put your hands out for me,
Assisting IFED on the raid is the Tactical Aid Unit. Having gained entry to the flat, DS Mark Forster briefs them on the case.
He's introduced various people to this accident management company, provided names, addresses for claimants, basically.
Yeah.
So any documentation in relation to names, addresses, written on scrap bits of paper. We know that the accidents that have been fraudulently submitted to the insurance companies involve high-value vehicles, and a lot of money is being made by credit hire. In other words, replacement vehicles, some of which they're charging the insurance companies £300 a day for, and these are vehicles that they've had for up to 18 months. Lovely job.
Even before the team starts the search for fraudulent documents, they come across some cannabis.
Is that just all paraphernalia in there?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Is that...
Cannabis they're going to bag up and take with them then.
Oh, they found?
Caution, yeah.
Well, it's a small amount, is it?
Yeah, well, an eighth, something like that.
IFED came here for evidence of fraudulent activity. In one of the bedrooms, a significant find is made.
Number of SIM cards here. Somewhere up to, I don't know, about a dozen or so SIM cards, another 3 there. Well, as I say, it's a common theme for criminals to use more than one mobile phone and certainly more than one sort of SIM card. It sort of assists to cover their tracks, etc., assists with their criminality, and basically it makes it a lot more difficult for us to detect who they're contacting, who's contacting them, etc.
DS Forster is called back to the lounge by one of his officers, tasked with analysing paperwork.
Suffered a fall from a ladder in 2005, sustained a heel fracture. He had an MRI in 2007, revealed protrusion.
He probably just keeps trying to claim, doesn't he? And he's got appeals with...
It's documentation that relates to a personal injury claim. We're just looking to see whether it may form part of a personal injury claim that may be fraudulent, or whether it is a legitimate claim.
The raid location has already filled a lot of evidence bags. DS Forster suspects he has found a piece of criminal research.
It's a printed picture from Google Maps Street View. This is the sort of thing that we do come across quite often with people who are involved in staged or contrived accident claims.
The printout contains a detailed description of the crash, including dates, times and positioning of the cars.
So, and underneath that it says weather, damp, wet. And then it says driver male, 2 males, which are presumably passengers or other occupants in that vehicle.
The suspect is arrested and the search for evidence is over. This half of the double raid is complete.
Off we go.
The second IFED team executes the next phase of the raid.
You're under arrest, suspicion of conspiracy to defraud.
The UK is the whiplash capital of Europe. Nearly 1,200 whiplash claims are made on our roads every day. The cost to the NHS of treating whiplash has been estimated at £8 million a year. It's December 2008, and the W15 bus is winding its way through the busy streets of Walthamstow, north-east London.
Our driver was driving along a quite narrow and busy suburban road in London. There were cars parked on both sides, quite difficult for him to get through.
Unfortunately, an error of judgment from the driver resulted in the bus scraping a parked car. The owner of the damaged car, Patricia Walker, confronted the driver about the scrape.
Patricia Walker claimed that she had been sitting in the car with her husband, that the bus had hit the car and that she'd suffered injuries. She said that she suffered injuries to her neck and that she was still struggling with the symptoms 4 or 5 months later.
It was an unfortunate incident, and Arriva was going to accept full responsibility for the collision and the whiplash suffered by Mrs. Walker. That was until the bus driver's report was submitted.
Our driver had done a good job in completing the report form, which he has to complete after every incident, and he'd made it quite clear that there was only one person in the vehicle which he had hit.
Before any kind of payout could be arranged, this difference of opinion had to be sorted. So Arriva analysed the bus's onboard CCTV footage.
Our buses are fitted with high-definition CCTV cameras, forward-facing, rear-facing, internal cameras.
And when they analysed the footage, the bus company didn't like what they saw. Mrs. Walker wasn't in the car at the time of the collision. She was, in fact, crossing the road behind the bus. The footage shows her knocking on the bus's back window after witnessing the crash.
Unfortunately for Patricia Walker, it showed her not actually inside the vehicle as she claimed in her claim form. And when the bus actually passed her, Patricia Walker then walks behind the bus. You then see her on the footage actually looking down the side of the bus at the damage to her vehicle and then entering the bus and talking to the bus driver.
A fair cop, surely, but not in Patricia's eyes.
When we showed Patricia Walker the footage, she looked shocked, and her basic answer was quite simply, "I know how it looks, officer. That is me on the footage. I cannot explain it, but I was inside the vehicle at the time of the collision." So effectively, she was arguing that she was in two places at once.
The police and we thought that she would plead guilty and go away quietly with whichever sentence the court thought appropriate. But no, she, at great expense to the public purse, decided that she was going to plead not guilty. Mrs. Walker seemed to think that the jury might believe that she could be in two places at once. Not surprisingly, the jury did not believe her.
Patricia Walker was charged with fraud by false representation. The jury found her guilty, and on the 27th of May 2011, she was sentenced to 12 months community service and a 3-month curfew.
I think she just made a wrong decision on this occasion, and why she pleaded not guilty, I have no idea, but I think she's regretted that decision. I think she was also very lucky not to go to prison.
For us, CCTV cameras are worth their weight in gold. We want a clear message of deterrence to go out to people that if you are involved in an accident with a Arriva bus and it's our fault and you are genuinely injured, then we want to pay you fairly and quickly. But if you're not injured and you're out to make a quick buck, then we'll do all we can to take criminal action against you.
Meet Munsif Dad and his two sons Amir and Nadeem. It's November 2005 and they've just submitted a £1,430 claim for repairs to the storm-damaged roof of a terraced property they own in their hometown of Nelson, Lancashire. That same month, the Dad family has also submitted a second claim for storm damage to the roof of a second property they own nearby. The Dads received payouts from the insurance company for both claims. 7 months later, in June 2006, in what seems to be an incredible stroke of bad luck, one of the houses again suffers storm damage to the roof. As before, the Dads submit a claim for the damage and wait for the money to come in. But 170 miles away in London, something was happening that would stop the Dads from receiving a penny from their insurers. The formation of the Insurance Fraud Bureau, the IFB. The IFB was set up to combat organised insurance crime in the UK. By persuading a previously secretive insurance industry to share information, the IFB has become a very powerful weapon in the fight against insurance fraud. The IFB had barely reached its first birthday when they were approached by an insurer with suspicions about a number of claims coming from the small town of Nelson. Among them were the Dads' claims for storm-damaged roofs.
The insurer first became suspicious with the claims in Operation Flash because a number of the cases were close to policy inceptions and the circumstances of the claims were remarkably similar from one to another.
In order to learn more about Mr. Dad, the IFB put his details through their specialist software. The software has access to information from nearly every insurer in the country. Armed with just the name and address of a single policyholder, the software can create a map of that individual's insurance agreements. It's a very quick process.
I could start by showing you what a genuine person in our system might look like.
The average policyholder would have a simple map with just a few connections raising no suspicion from the IFB.
Here's an example of one of the properties in Operation Flash. This property in the middle was an address that was owned by Amir Dad. In less than 2 years, he submitted 9 claims, and each of these icons highlighted in red represents a claim against one of the insurance companies that we worked with.
The software indicated that Mr. Dad was suspiciously well insured, so the IFB took the case back up to Lancashire to get extra help. Leading the investigation for the Lancashire Police was DI Dave Groombridge. He and his team recognised a pattern in the claims being made by the Dads.
I think the offenders in this case were clever in keeping their individual claims down to a minimum, so it was volume claims which netted a huge amount of money collectively rather than just 1 or 2 small big claims.
DI Dave Groombridge and his team unearthed a total of £104,000 worth of claims made by the Dads. The Lancashire team also discovered the Dads had not restricted their scamming to just home insurance.
There was a number of claims which were quite outlandish, principally dogs that didn't exist, never had existed. After 2 or 3 premium payments, these dogs were miraculously lost or stolen. There was also large amounts of jewellery, apparently stolen in burglaries, which indeed later turned up in the possession of the claimants. Complete false claim.
After 2 years of investigating, the IFB and Lancashire Police had collected indisputable evidence of fraudulent activity by the Dads. The most astonishing information being the schedule of works carried out on the Dads' 2 properties. 2004, storm damaged roof at house number 1. September 2005, rear wall damaged by vehicle at house number 2. October 2005, wall damaged at house number 1. November 2005, roof damaged at house number 1 and 2. March 2006, wall damaged at house 1. April 2006, roof damaged at house 1. May 2006, wall damaged at house 1. June 2006, wall damaged at house 1 and 2. June 2006, roof damaged at house 2. The Lancashire Police were ready to strike.
The main conspirators, the main people behind this scam, were arrested in September 2009 by Lancashire Police. They executed warrants at a number of addresses, supported by staff from the IFB.
A judge at Preston Crown Court called it a clever and determined fraud. Mr. Munsif's dad was handed a suspended 9-month prison sentence. His sons Nadim and Amir were each imprisoned for 15 months.
I think their criminal activities dominated their lives, and the vast majority of the trappings of their wealth had come about through their criminal behaviour. We pay increased insurance premiums to cover the losses incurred by the companies through this sort of fraud. But times are changing, and the police are prepared to work with other agencies, and collectively we will pursue these people and be under no misapprehension. You will be caught, and you will be punished, and your assets will be stripped from you.
Today, IFED is executing raids on a suspected motor fraud gang.
Open the door, it's going to get smashed in!
Alongside the arrest of a suspect earlier, the second IFED team continues to search 2 further properties. A large search is planned at a business address where they hope to secure more evidence. First, IFED heads to the home of another suspect.
From the City of London Police. We're from the police.
Yeah?
Yeah. Can we come in, please?
Yeah, of course.
You're under arrest, okay, on suspicion of conspiracy to defraud.
For what now?
You don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention or question something which you later on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Do you understand? Yeah. Yeah.
The suspect works for the accident management company, and they believe is involved in the alleged fraudulent activity there. DC Declan Mallow searches the flat for evidence of fraud.
Shouldn't be too long once you finish searching. We'll then take you to the custody suite, and then at some point later on today, you'll be interviewed.
This is the lady's main bedroom. The other bedroom's been searched and nothing's been found, so this is the last room to do in the flat.
DC Mallow takes some paperwork for further investigation. With a second suspect arrested, IFED has just one more location to raid.
Just had news from DS Finnegan that we've got access to another premises, so we're just waiting further update from him to see if he needs additional resources there when we've finished here.
With a 1,000 square metre business to search, the IFED team based here will need plenty of help. Leading the search is DS Tom Finnegan, who's just been made aware of the recent arrests.
We intend to carry out a search of her office very shortly. As I said, there are other locked offices in there that are the offices of the directors. We intend to effect entry to those offices shortly, and we'll see what comes out of that search.
There's plenty of security protecting this workplace, but IFED is used to such measures and has come armed with a crowbar and a battering ram. It's not just about brute force, though. Today, DS Finnegan's IFED unit is comprised of specialist investigators brought in anticipation of complex evidence.
My colleague here is specially trained to interrogate computers, laptops, anything of digital, electronic nature. We have dedicated financial investigators, and this gentleman is one of those investigators, so he's here specifically to have a look at the financial documents in relation to the company.
Looking at an intimidating workload, DS Finnegan calls in the help of DC Mallow and DI Rogers.
Right, the sort of things that we'll be looking for are these sorts of files, which say referrals. And within those, we'd expect to find documentation of people that have allegedly been involved in accidents and the subsequent claims that have then transpired from those accidents. Just for doing that.
Every scrap of evidence is needed if the IFED team is to get a conviction, and it's mounting up.
This is an office which we're definitely interested in searching. We'd expect to see whiteboards on the wall, sort of indicating the work that they're currently involved in, and we would think that these are the names, likely, of people involved in staged accidents that haven't occurred. Just for doing that.
The financial investigator makes a discovery.
what he's gone through so far, we can see large sums of money going through their business account, which might be all legitimate, but at this stage it's certainly of interest to us.
DS Finnegan's IT specialist is extracting large amounts of potential evidence from the computers.
What my colleague's doing at this time is taking an image, a forensic image of that server, which we can use at a later date, examine it for any evidence that might be on it, and obviously then it can be prepared as an exhibit for the case.
All in, IFED spends over 50 man-hours extracting, deciphering and bagging evidence on site. It's been a successful raid. IFED has enough evidence to fill a van, making DS Finnegan a happy man.
We believe this particular accident claim company has been responsible for putting a large number of fraudulent claims forward to the insurance industries. That, of course, when they turn out to be fraudulent and the insurance industry spend that money or pay that money out, results in you and I and all members of the British public paying more for their insurance. We, at the end of the day, are covering in our premiums the cost of fraud that's been committed.
The owners of the accident management company were also arrested, and along with the 2 suspects arrested in the IFED raids, are all now on bail. If charged with conspiracy to defraud and found guilty, all 4 could be facing 10 years in prison.